Okay, compound sentences are basically just more than one inequality being dealt with at the same time. Okay, that's going to be our point for today. It's actually pretty easy. It's really just a matter of learning the notation. The notation gets a little tricky here. So, a couple of words you should know, and maybe you've seen these before. Okay, the intersection, and I'm going to do my best to write neatly. We'll see how I do. I'll write a little bit thicker. Is the set of objects. Oh, that's way too thick. The set of objects that belong to two groups at the same time.
Is it hard to write on that?
A little bit. You have to get used to it. Obviously, my handwriting looks a lot neater off of this, but same time. Okay. So again, the intersection is the set of objects that belong to two groups at the same time. So for example, the intersection of my class and Mrs. Mossberger's class would be anybody who is in both classes. Anybody who has me and Mrs. Mossberger as a teacher. If I were throwing a party for the intersection of Mrs. Torigno's classes and Mrs. Mossberger's classes, who here would get to go? Okay, if you have Mrs. Mossberger and me, and you all have me, okay, you would get to go to the party for our classes. Okay, if we threw a party for the intersection, okay, so that's when you have me and Mrs. Mossberger, okay, if you have both of us. Yes, it is echoing because it's recording. Okay, the union is the set that belongs to one or the other, okay? The set of objects that belong, now I'm writing too fast, to one group or the other. And do you think that if you were in both, that would still count?
No.
It does.
Yes.
Or both. Okay. So the union is the set of objects that belong to one group or the other. So if I were throwing a party for the union of our classes, that would be anyone who has me or Mrs. Mossberger. So who would get to go now?
Everybody.
Okay, everybody in here, right? Because you all have me. Which party's bigger? The intersection of the union. The union. Okay, the union would be a bigger party. Okay, so if you're looking at a Venn diagram, and yours doesn't look like a Venn diagram, but you can make it look that way. It's supposed to. Okay. The intersection is the overlap. Intersection is in here. Okay? So we're going to label that with a symbol, and it looks like this. A, and it's like an upside down U, or like a lowercase n. So that's the intersection of A and B. The union would be anybody over here, and anybody over here, and anybody in the middle. This whole thing is the union. Okay? And your symbol for that I'm going to write down here is A. And then this is like a U. U for union. A-U-B. Okay? Do you get the difference between the two? I hope. Okay, here's how we're going to be. Okay, so these ones are or, which means you get to come to the party if you're in either one of those groups. Okay? And these ones are easy because basically you just plop them both on the number line. So x is greater than 5. What's that going to look like on the number line? Okay, open circle on 5. Shade to the right, right? Okay? What about x is less than or equal to negative 2? Okay, closed circle on negative 2, shade to the left. Okay, yep. And that would be your answer, because all of these numbers are included and all of these numbers are included. Basically, the only thing not included is this stuff in between. Okay. What about x is less than or equal to 3? How do I graph that one? Closed circle on 3. Shade to the left for less than. Now, how would I shade x is less than negative 1? Okay, it would be an open circle here on negative 1, but do you see how that's already filled in for you? And everything less than that is also already filled in? So basically, you don't have to graph that one. I mean, it wouldn't be wrong if you did this and then shaded it again. Okay, but you already have it shaded correctly because you're already including it. Basically, this whole group is included in this. It would be like if I threw a party for everyone taking, how do I want to say this? Everyone taking Algebra 1 or everyone in my third hour. Well, you're all already taking Algebra 1, so you'd all be invited anyway, right? Does that make sense? That one group is like contained in the other? Okay, what about x is greater than or equal to negative 3? What's that graph going to look like? Closed on negative 3 to the right. Well, you should fill in everything that's there. Once you get to the end of it, that's where you use your arrow. Because you're going to run into some where the arrow doesn't really keep going later on. Okay? And then x is less than 4. What's that going to look like? Okay, open circle on 4, but 4 is already colored in for me. Okay? And then I shade to the left. What's going to happen this time? That's right, the whole line is filled in. Okay? Because if I asked you to pick a number that was either bigger than negative 3 or less than 4, wouldn't any number work? Right? Okay. So these ones get a little bit harder. What's the difference between these and the last ones? And, right? And when you see and, the problem is that you need to do the overlap. Okay? You need the overlap when it's talking about the word and. So what I usually do for these is I graph these two things individually up above the line, and then I put my final answer on the line, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. So x is greater than negative 2 means an open circle on negative 2 and shade to the right. X is less than 4 means a closed circle on 4 and shade to the left. What I want is the numbers that are in both groups. Where is that? Okay, it's where they cross, right? It's in here, where they're doubled up. So really what I do is I say, okay, I need to bring this down, I need to bring this down, and I use the endpoints that are given to me. So like this one here would be an open circle, this one here would be a closed circle, and I'm shading everything in between. And that's your final answer. I want your final answers on the actual number line. Okay? So do everything else up above and final answer down below. I run into some trouble with this on the test because some people like to start on the number line and work their way up, so then their final answer is up on the top, but then I don't know which one is your final answer. So I would really prefer you do it this way. If this way makes you too crazy, at least make a note or something to show me what your final answer is. Okay? You don't, like I'm not going to require you to do it, but don't assume that it's always just going to be in between the two numbers. Because you're going to see in the next two examples that that's not always true. Okay? All right, so for the next one, x is less than or equal to 2 would be a closed circle here. And x is less than negative 3 would be an open circle here and shade to the left. So see, if you had assumed that you were just shading between 2 and negative 3, you would be wrong. Where's the overlap? Okay, negative 4, well, negative 2 and beyond, right? Or negative 3, I'm sorry, I couldn't read my own. Okay, so you're right, but like negative 3.1 would be okay, right? So really starting at negative 3 and this way, all of this is going to be overlap. So for my final answer, I'm going to bring this down, open circle there, and shade. Okay, so that's the set that's included in both, is everything less than negative 3. All right, let's look at this next one. X is greater than or equal to 2. Would be here. X is less than negative 1. Would be here. Where do these overlap? They don't. There is no number that is both bigger than 2 and less than negative 1. So for this one, you would want to say no solution, or the empty set, because there's nothing in that intersection. If this had been an or, you would just take these two and plop them on the number line and be done. But because it's an and, you want to know the stuff that's overlap, and there is no overlap. Okay? Questions on that? All right, one more to get through. Here's where the notation gets really crazy. Okay, don't let this freak you out. When you see it written like this, what this is really saying is I want to shade between 2 and 4. Okay? And the 2 is going to be an open circle because there's no equal bar there, and the 4 is going to be a closed circle. So open circle on 2, closed circle on 4, shade in between. Okay? That's all that notation is saying. If they're written like this, yeah, like where the x is between two numbers, that's always going to be between. Okay. Now, on that next one, what does this symbol right here mean? Do you remember? That's union. And is that and or or? Or. That's or. So this one, I can just plot both of these on the line at the same time, because I can be in this one or this one. So I'm going to go from negative 1. What kind of circle is going to be on negative 1? Open, right? So open circle on negative 1, closed circle on 2, and shade in between. And then also greater than or equal to 4. Okay? So all of that would be included. Now what does this symbol mean? That's and, which means we have to do overlap. And lower? Overlap, sorry. Overlap. So, from negative 3 to 3, and this is where I'm going to do it up above the line and then decide what my final answer is later. Negative 3 is a closed circle. Positive 3 is an open circle. And I'm shading in between. And then also P is greater than 1 means an open circle on 1 and shade everything to the right. So can you see your overlap now? From 1 to 3, and they're both open circles. So open, open, shade in between. And that would be your final answer. Does that make sense? So really the big thing to get is, are you just plopping both of them on a number line, or are you finding the intersection? Okay? So and means you're looking for overlap, or means you're just tossing them both on there. Okay?